Boot it up.
There.
Wait, is this mine?
That's yours.
Why am I tangled?
Come
Come on. Come on.
Ooh, let's get this on my. Make sure that's plugged in. Is that good? Hey everybody.
Plugged in?
Welcome back.
Oh, now is it?
No, you're good.
Okay.
You're good all the time. We're on this is another episode. This is episode number 74. 74 on the Art of Coaching. We're back and it's a Wednesday.
74 episodes in.
Yeah. 74 episodes. What are we going to do when we get to 100? Maybe we'll get an actual sponsor.
I don't know.
That's in 26 more weeks. That's in another half year.
That's a great way to think of it.
Yeah.
So 6 months from now, it'll be October. Wow.
Yeah, as long as we don't miss anything. Which chances are we might. So we'll say October, November.
Yeah.
Be at episode 100. We're on episode 74 today. How are you
74 or
feeling?
73?
74. I was thinking 24 because I said 26 about the other thing. We're on 74.
Okay. That sounded very Rain Man right there. 74,
Yeah.
we're on episode 74.
Yeah.
74 episodes right now. We're on episode 74.
I get my underwear at Kmart.
Good training sesh today. Good time.
You did some Helen-esque intervals.
Yeah, so we'll call them mixed modal intervals, mixed modalities.
That sounds a little
some
bit better.
MG dubs,
Yeah.
MGW for those that don't know. Actually, this is MWG. So we had a monostructural or cyclical piece in the running or rowing or biking, whatever you were doing, skiing.
Yeah.
And then we also had some weightlifting implements with the kettlebell swing.
Whoa.
And then we had some body weight or gymnastics with the pull-up or whatever variant you were doing.
Not too high skill, not too high volume. Sounds like the perfect workout.
Yeah, it was good, and it was a really cool way to finish out the progression that we had been doing. This last block of training that you designed, which I think I shared this. I don't know if you saw my comment in Slack when you shared it for all of us,
Yeah,
but
I reacted to
it
it.
was very good. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's kind of funny. I was going to share this with you pre-hitting the live button, but I guess I can share it now. I was coming around on my second lap of the second round, and I was just thinking how fulfilling it was for me personally to just be doing the workout that is written and correct for me.
Yeah.
And I say that with an abundance of clarity and awareness of my history with working out and CrossFit and what this workout, if it's just written or labeled differently, would do to me psychologically.
Yeah.
From the history that I have with it, times that I've had with it, weights that I've used with it versus where I am now, today was a much healthier spot for me to be in than if you had just said, hey guys, we're going to build into doing this workout called Helen.
Right.
So yeah, it was just a cool, neat little reflection as I was running and doing the workout and, just kind of staying within myself and not worrying about anything or anybody else.
It's something I think you and I have talked about it before because a lot of people, myself included, is like when you see a benchmark workout, you start feeling rather excited and you're like, oh my gosh, like I have to do so well, like I have to do extremely well, I have to set a benchmark. Like, this is a benchmark, I have to do really well. And Helen, is 3 rounds for time versus if we just said, hey, like it's just the 3 rounds for time, and someone was like, well, it's Helen. Like, no, today it's not Helen. Like, today it's 3 rounds for time, like, whatever that might be, use whatever. And it's, I think you'd see more people feeling, like you said, healthier.
Mm.
Whatever benchmark workout it was. And I started thinking this because we repeated an open workout back in, like, I don't know, August or September or something like that. And it was the one with the wall balls and the rowing from 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people were worked up about it. And I'm like, well, what would I tell you if it was just like, if it didn't say that up there, like 19.1, would you have recognized it was an open workout? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
And I'm like, That's right. It would just be any other 15-minute AMRAP that you're doing today.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction, is that most folks, let's just say most general fitness enthusiasts would not recognize an open workout or a benchmark just off the top of their heads. Now, if they're a sport enthusiast, have been in it, are immersed in it, things like that, I think they've got a better chance of recognizing some popular benchmarks. Maybe Helen's one of them. Open workouts, I don't know. But I think the other important thing that helped me psychologically is it wasn't just a random Wednesday where you said, all right guys, today we're doing 3 rounds, run 400, 21 and 12. Because I would have known that, because that is probably my favorite benchmark ever, but it does come with a heavy weight. I'm going to recognize it no matter how you dress it up.
Yeah.
But because it was 5 weeks ago that we introduced some intervals of running, kettlebell, pull-up, and then we're building on it, by the time it came around to say, you're doing 3 rounds, or in my case today, because I missed last week, my case today was every 4 minutes do a round, even though I still ended up doing 3 rounds. It didn't have any of the weight that it would have if you would have just written it and then covered up the name on a random day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was 5 weeks of you being very calculated intelligently to say that we know that we've got this thing that we want to do in week 5, but because we know what it can weigh certain people down with, we're going to back all the way up and start from this place. And I don't know if you legit thought or did that, but to me that's what I was thinking of as I knew what was eventually going to pop up in week 5.
No, that's the train of thought I have, is think about in week 5, and I can thank you for this, is like when we were writing a block of programming, is think about where you want to end.
Mm-hmm.
And then how are you going to get there? So basically you have 5 weeks to figure out how you're going to get there. And I was like, well, what are the movement patterns we're looking for? And we needed some sort of triplet, just to kind of fit our formula or whatever you want to call it for programming. Some running, some sort of hinging, and some sort of upper body pulling. I'm like, well, why not put Helen in the last week? Quote Helen. Why not call it the 3 rounds per time? But we're just dressing Helen up, and that way it'll allow the people that have been here for that workout 5 weeks to do it. If not, everybody else gets a decent workout every day otherwise. Because I remember I think this block differed from maybe the other ones we've had based on feedback and just observances, especially on this day, because by the 3rd interval, no matter what, everybody was, on the first day, everybody was shot and tired. Because when you have an interval like that, even though it's, a 2 or 2.5 minute interval and you're going every 5 minutes, when you have to get faster with each one, it's difficult, right? And it's challenging, but not so much that you feel like how you do after Helen,
Right.
afterwards. So I thought that, that is kind of how I think is start from, where do you want to end, and then what's the most logical and safe and effective and efficient way to get there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So that was a quick little programming talk. We got more of that coming up later.
Yep.
But we do have some upcoming events that are coming up. Some upcoming events.
Yeah, so this Saturday is Emily's Gymnastics clinic. We still have a couple of spots open. If anybody, ironically, we're doing some pull-ups today. We did some toes to the bar the other day. If you find that those are 2 movements that you would like some more deliberate practice on and just come in and work on those things, that's why we do the clinics like this, is just to offer for folks that do want maybe a little bit quicker route to developing these skills, or more deliberate route to developing these skills. I would definitely recommend coming in to spend some time with Coach Emily this Saturday. It's from 11 to 1. And then we have a clean and jerk clinic on Saturday, May the 8th, also from 11 to 1. Same thing. If you are somebody who would like some either more work with the clean and jerk, or maybe you've never done it and you want some exposure to it because you've seen other people doing it or you've heard about it, read about it, have interest in it, I would highly recommend spending some time with Coach Dean. Is Rob going to be there too? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't want to push any buttons.
Yeah. So we need to figure that out, but I do know that Coach Dean will definitely be there. Saturday, May the 8th, so we still have a little bit of time before that. And then down the road, it is fast approaching. We're about 6 weeks away from Memorial Day.
Ooh.
So we will have our traditional Memorial Day workout, the CFG Memorial Workout, on Saturday, May 29th. And then, as always, we will be closed on on Monday, the 31st. So get your workout in early Saturday morning, and then enjoy the remainder of Memorial Day weekend with your fam jam.
Oh yeah.
Just as a side note, this is as much to you and the other coaches as it is to the listeners and the members. If you're not sure what the CFG Memorial Workout is, it is one that we had a couple of our military veterans write. And that is the one that we've done the last several years. It's a combination of some running, it's lunges, burpees, and pull-ups.
Oh yeah.
And the last three movements are in what I would consider fairly high volume. So if you hear fairly high volume burpees, lunges, and pull-ups, and you're like, ugh, or you're like, man, I don't know that I'm capable of that, number one, that's okay. What is the first step to recovery is to admitting something, right? So number one is just having that awareness. Number two is have a discussion with your coach and say, hey, I plan to work out on Memorial Day. I want to do this. It sounds like a good thing to be a part of. It is. And your coach can design your plan to make sure that you are ready to go for that.
Yeah.
So make sure that for you guys, get with your peoples. And then for you members, get with your coaches. And let them know, because what you don't want to have happen is you're a week away and you say, man, I can't wait for this Saturday, and you're not ready for 100 and something. Is that 105? Is that right? 105 pull-ups, lunges, and burpees as it is written. So if you're not ready for that, we're not going to, just a fair warning right now, and maybe we'll repeat this multiple times, we're not going to let you come in and do 105 repetitions of any of that. So, but if you do want to tackle something like that with us on Memorial Day, we would love to have you, but we want to make sure that you are intelligently prepared. So, there's that.
I'm pulling up the podcast episode. If you guys are interested in the importance behind the numbers and that workout, Mark James and I did a podcast episode, let me find it here, on June 29th of 2020. Because Mark James is one of the veterans that helped write the workout. And so this is CFG episode 40, if you guys want to go back and listen to that and hear the importance behind the numbers in that workout and why we do it. And yeah.
Awesome. Cool. All right, so that's upcoming events. Did I miss anything?
Nope, sounds good to me.
All right, let's rock and roll. What did we have to talk about today?
All right, so ironically enough...
Oh, I do have a hard out 11:30, just so you know.
Okay, me too. Ironically enough, we have two questions from the same person today for the podcast. And this person does not listen to the podcast. So you guys can thank that person, Mr. Bart Rice, for the knowledge that we are going to bestow upon you, or at least try to. So here are the questions we have for today. What is a normal / healthy body fat percentage? We kind of teased that a little in the last week's episode. Number 2 is we're going to talk about heart rate. And this is kind of a multi-part question. So what is heart rate reserve? How does it apply to me being like the client or a member? How does it relate to max heart rate? What are heart rate zones? So we're going to be talking about heart rate, specifically heart rate reserve, because that's something Bart brought up. And then the last question, I get this a lot in like weeks 4 and 5 of the current block we're on. What does the next block of training look like? And the question, I won't know. So until Monday morning, I'm just going to come in and write something on the whiteboard, and we're going to do it that day, because that's how fitness should be done. It should be random. For random's sake.
For novelty's sake.
Yeah. No, so we'll start it out with number one. Josh, I will ask you, what is a normal or healthy body fat percentage?
So, last night, Mandy and I were sitting on the front porch at our house, and we like to just take time to decompress and just talk. And she happened to be scrolling on Facebook and saw this, and so that kind of triggered, her and I's conversation about that. And she knew what was coming as soon as she asked the question to me, and I'm sure anybody that has listened to me talk, or our podcast, or you talk, or any of our coaches talk, you kind of probably know the answer that is coming is that it depends.
Yeah.
To a degree, right? I can't just say, well, this percentage or this specific range. I am going to give some ranges, but I do want to kind of set the terrain appropriately so that people understand that there's a whole lot that goes into the health conversation, okay? And there's a whole lot that goes into where your ranges make, because maybe I say these ranges and you're like, well, I saw something else. Well, you need to understand where those ranges came from. Who was in the study that ended up popping out that these are the healthy ranges, what we are determining. So the first thing that you have to determine is, what is the definition of health that we are working from? Are we thinking that health is simply the absence of disease, whether it's acute or chronic disease? Are we saying that the definition of health also encompasses a very long biological age? So, meaning somebody that lives to be 100 is healthier than somebody that only lives to the age of 50. Is one person healthier than another? And I know we're talking about body fat percentage, but because health is in that conversation, we need to kind of suss out all the other pieces of that.
Yeah.
So the definition of health that you use is important. With the caveat is that you need to make sure that if you are having a conversation around health with somebody else, that you guys are playing by the same rules. Meaning if you say, well, my definition of health is just doing whatever I want, whenever I want, at any given time, that might be different than my definition of health.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to make sure that we're all on the same playing field. Now, of course, there are some general measures I think that the majority of folks would agree on. But again, you just need to make sure that you understand what your own definition of health is. And then you can kind of go from there. The second piece is understanding when we talk about ranges, where is that information coming from? So for those of you guys that don't know, much of the study that goes into, or that produces results on, you were mentioning resting heart rate zones, anything that is really kind of in the exercise or fitness realm, for the most part, the stuff that gets published and gets a lot of press and a lot of marketing behind it is from like the performance field, right? The sporting field. And who do you think the subjects are that are doing these tests? Usually young, white, male, university-age students. Am I saying that they're never done with, some more diversity or female certain? I'm not saying that at all. But the majority is from that cohort.
Right.
So that's also a disclaimer. The other thing is there is a difference between, I know that the question didn't ask this, but there is a difference between body fat percentage and body mass index, because that can also be something that if you go to your primary care doctor, they may give you a measure of one of the measures of health that they use to gauge your healthiness could be body mass index. It could be body fat percentage. And I actually was talking to Brez a couple of weeks ago about this, and I believe it was him that I was talking to, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but he said the way that he explains it to his patients at the clinic is, if you're not somebody that exercises regularly or gets movement, body mass index is probably a good figure to use to assess your healthiness at the surface level. Like, that's one metric to use. Mm-hmm. But if you're somebody that is physically active, you go to the gym, you work out, you get daily movement, things like that, body mass index is probably not a good metric to attach to your health or unhealth. So there's that. Then he's saying you would go to like body fat percentage. Okay, so having said all of that, the other thing to keep in mind is that from 0 to about 2 years of age, so like when you first pop out and open your eyes to up to about the age of 2, that is when your body is creating and getting flooded with fat cells. So either more fat cells are getting created or fat cells are expanding. And then right about the 2-year mark, that is kind of set in stone. So the fat cells that you have from that point on, are pretty much set in stone. Of course, they will grow as you grow, or as you add body fat to your body. Of course, those fat cells will grow in size, so on and so forth. What determines the number? It could be nourishment, so your nutrition for the first couple of years. It could be genetics play a part, culturally, all these things play a part. Why is body fat percentage a fairly important thing to understand, and more than just a body fat percentage number? Because at the end of the day, the human body really cares about 2 things. Number 1, survival, and number 2, reproduction. And you need a certain amount of body fat, quote unquote, a healthy level of body fat in order to fulfill those 2 things. So that was a big runway of kind of getting people to understand that it's not enough to just say, here are the ranges, that you need to understand the history, all this kind of other stuff that goes into it. A healthy range, I would still say that it depends upon you, and I'll kind of give some back-end stuff after I let you talk, but I would say that a healthy range for guys is somewhere in the 10 to 20%. And that seems like a massive range, as it should be. Females is about 18 to 28%. Now, I'm just going to reiterate, we talked about this a couple of episodes ago on another podcast, that yes, it is healthier and necessary for females to carry more body fat than males. Why is that? Because the survival or the what's the word that I'm looking for? My brain just took a big dump on me. The perpetuation of the human race depends upon females.
Right.
If they don't reproduce, the human race ceases to exist, right?
Yeah.
And you need more fat on your body to do all the things that their wonderful bodies do. So, for my female listeners or members, clients, however you want to consider yourselves, don't get caught up in thinking that I need to be fatter than my male counterparts, or oh my gosh, we're just destined to be fatter than our male counterparts. That's not it at all. Don't think about it like that. Think about it just from a perpetuation of the species. Females will, on average, carry more body fat because of that necessity, right? So I'll stop there and see if you have anything to add or dispute or anything like that.
I mean, you covered it, man. You crushed a lot. There's a lot to unpack. I'm just thinking about pudgy babies and why babies 0 to 2 years old are little pudge balls, little marshmallows.
They're amazing.
It makes sense now after you hear that. Their body's just packing on fat. Yeah, so I think people know when they ask us a question like, well, what's healthy with this or what's healthy with that, they're going to get the "it depends" answer. I like how you brought up BMI because that's actually something that I will share with people when they come in for a consultation, whether it's a monthly check-in with me or whether it's their initial consultation and we do an in-body, is every time I'm going to tell them, hey, remember, like, BMI is a good indicator, but it's not the gold standard, right? It's going to tell you that the best athletes in the world are class 2 obesity.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna have to remember that. You know, it's going to tell you that, you know, I mean, I can only imagine the BMI of like what an IFBB pro bodybuilder would be. You know, class 2 or class 2 would be probably something, you know, 35 or above, right? Yeah. So, because they're just massive dudes. But what we do like to focus on in reference to the in-body is body fat percentage. And so we will keep a range in mind without, you know, it is very individualistic to the member or the client that we're kind of talking to or that's coming in. Because, Josh, if you're 20% body fat, I'm not going to tell you have to be 8, right? I'm going to tell you that if it is a goal of yours to lose body fat, aesthetically, mentally, things, performance-wise, whatever it might be, okay, like, let's first of all get you into the teens. Like, if you're 21, like, let's get you to 19.9 first, right? Mm-hmm. Like, let's lose 1.1% and then talk about it. That would be what would probably be common ground for what calling a healthy body fat percentage would be for you. But that's just for you. If you're miserable at 19.9% body fat because you don't like the way you're eating, you don't like the way you feel when you're working out, you just feel cloudy because you don't feel like your body feels better at 20 to 21, like, that's going to be your healthy range. I think so many people get caught up looking at, like, for some reason I got Bruce Lee in mind because people always used to say, oh, did they used to, like, there used to be a rumor he was like 1% body fat, like, oh, Bruce Lee's 1% body fat, which isn't possible, guys. Like, people used to say, oh, he was like 1 to 4% body fat, and he wasn't.
Right.
I mean, he was probably maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah. He could not do the things that he did performance-wise without having more fat on him.
Yeah. So there's always the rumor behind Bruce Lee. Let me make sure nobody's commenting and said that, because I always feel bad if like someone had said that and I didn't know and I called them out inadvertently. But people equate having a lower body fat percentage with health. I think they do that very, very often. Or having a lower BMI with health. BMI is a little different because it is a healthy range. And that's not the case. Like, you gave the range of 10 to 20.
Right.
So we know that probably sub 20 is where men should hang out, and then anywhere sub 28% is where women should hang out. But if you're 4 feet 11 inches tall and you're a woman, it's going to be different than a 5'10" woman. And so I just think it's important to keep all that in mind, not to totally just restate everything you just said, but that's my long way of saying it depends. How do you know what's healthy for you? It takes a lot of time to maybe figure that out, and it takes a lot of body awareness. Yeah, you were gonna say something.
I have a great formula for that actually, but go ahead and finish what you're saying.
So a good example is something, because I'll get this question from time to time, is they'll say, I think it's hard for people to believe, but back when I was really, really light, it might have even been slightly before I was working out here, but there was a time I was in like the 9s. I was like 9, and you never would have thought it because I got these love handles here. So the 9 was 4.
The old genetic love handles, yes.
That's right.
Came out and had those just hanging on there.
Yeah, but according to the hydrostatic weighing or the in-body or whatever it was we did, it was I was supposedly in the 9%. I'm currently at 17 and I feel way better.
Yeah.
You know, I feel stronger, I feel fitter, and a lot goes into that. I feel most optimal between 12 to 14. But again, it's, hey Mark, how'd you figure that out? Well, I've been weighing and measuring myself and getting these metrics for the last 7 years, you know, almost 7.5 years. So you just kind of learn and you take mental notes of where you're going to feel best. But you said you have a formula for it.
I do. How much time do we have?
Oh gosh.
There was something else I was going to say in response to something that you said that was really good.
Dang it.
But I kind of forgot what it was.
Let's see, we were talking about Bruce Lee.
No.
We were talking about I was 9%.
No.
We were talking
so
Yes.
it kind of relates to that notion of, okay, so we've got, that's a big range of 10 to 20 or 18 to 28%. So there's like a 10% range in there that could potentially be healthy. You could, this is why I said that you need to understand what the definition of health is for you. And we can have some conversation around that. I have my own thoughts, but we could save that for another day, really. But this is a really cool way to think of it. If somebody comes in and says, like let's just say a male comes in and they weigh and they're 20%, I'm like, hey, you're in great shape actually. And they're like, nah, I really, I want to get healthier. I want to get down to 15. So we want to shave off 5% body fat. And there's a whole host of things that go into all of that stuff. We're not going to cover that. Let's just say that we agree we want to make a trip down 5% with the body fat percentage. And it involves changing a lot of things that this person values in their lifestyle. So they're going to do pizza on Friday nights with their family. They're going to, go to the baseball game on Sunday, and they're going to eat hot dogs. And we're looking at this, and they're on board to make the change because they see this number. They think that it correlates to more health, and we get there and we sit down and have a conversation. Hey, how you feeling? Happiness and joy and fulfillment in life is a component of health, almost universally for everybody. Caveat, I'm not saying that when people are eating for pleasure or are medicating with food that is healthy or healthy because it's making them happy or they're getting the dopamine pleasure rush from it. But the communal aspect of what is going on with the family, the experiences around food, all those things matter. So while the number may in fact be lower, which people, because of marketing and where society is, they associate like, oh, lower body fat, you must be healthier. That might not actually end up being the case. And so that's another super important thing for people to keep in mind whenever they are thinking about health and they're thinking about goals and metrics and things like that. Being 10% versus 20% body fat doesn't mean that you're going to be twice as healthy, because if you are twice as miserable, I would say that is not healthy.
I agree.
Okay, so I would encourage folks to sit and take some time and think about what are the components that they would put into the bucket of how they would describe their health. Is it the biomarkers that they get from blood paneling? Is it body fat percentage? Is it joy that you get looking in the mirror and seeing the person that is looking back at you? Is it fulfillment in your career, like all those things I think are components of health, and it can't just get boiled down to a number. And I know people like to have measurements and, because what gets measured gets managed and can get changed and all that kind of stuff. But there are plenty of intangible things that don't get measured, because not everything that can be measured matters. Put that on a bumper sticker.
Oh.
All right. So
what's the formula?
The formula to figure out what is optimal body fat percentage of you is you need to have mastery of some basic lifestyle guidelines. Okay? Now, and I need to put a disclaimer on the front end of this, because Mandy pointed out something in our conversation last night that I did when I was talking to her about this. Is we're not saying make all these sweeping changes in one fell swoop and then wait it out and see where the chips fall. We're not fans of doing things like that. The biggest reason being because making massive sweeping changes are not sustainable over time. The intensity is too high. What matters most is consistency. However, if you have mastery of some basic lifestyle guidelines, where your weight and your body fat percentage shakes out at that point is the optimal body fat percentage for you. So, what does that actually look like? We'll start with sleep. This is very age dependent. You know, your need for sleep actually, the number of hours declines as you get older, right? So babies, you know, adolescents, toddlers, teens, you know, they need a ton of sleep. But then you get to a point where your sleep requirement actually starts to go down. But we're just going to give a range for adults of 6 to 8 hours of quality sleep at nighttime, where you sleep with the moon and rise with the sun. You're also drinking half of your body weight in ounces of water every day. You're getting a healthy amount, an adequate amount of sunshine on your skin, not to the point of burning on your skin every day. And please don't run out there and start tanning and do all that. I'm just giving you some broad brushstrokes, so please consult your dermatologist or your doctor or whatever. But sunshine is important, right? Okay. So we're going to say that. Movement. You should move every day.
Mm-hmm.
You should do a combination of easy aerobic work and resistance training every single day. Okay? Some form of it. How much? I don't know. It depends. But some form of it, you know, during the day. So that's movement. From a stress management standpoint, you should have daily practices of gratitude and good relationships with your immediate circle. And then for nutrition, it should be as close to the ground as is possible, with no additives, preservatives, herbicides, anything. If you could kill it, or you could pull it off of a tree or directly out of the ground, let's say 200,000 years ago, that's your food profile. All right? So, if you get all that right, then whatever weight and body fat percentage that you sit at that point upon mastery of those things, that is what is optimal for you.
And here's the plot twist, and I don't want to speak for everybody because, as I think you said this on the show last week, someone's going to speak up and be like, oh, I do all that and I'm not.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't. I know you. If you think you're the unique snowflake, you come and talk to me, and it's not you.
Yeah. But if you manage to accomplish that, which it's not easy to accomplish. It's not easy to accomplish doing all that. It takes time, right? It takes habit formation and getting in a routine. But
wait. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Okay.
Once you have mastery of those things, let's say that you hang out there for, I need to put a time on it because Mandy did point this out. You need to hang out there with those basic lifestyle guidelines for a couple of months. That becomes the norm. So that everything can kind of normalize in the body.
Yeah.
That's your optimum. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, if and when you do that, and you do it for that undisclosed amount of time, you know, we'll say 6 to 12 months, you will see whatever that number is that you say, you know, you're going to fall wherever you need to fall, but it's probably going to be what you're looking for. If you're concerned about body fat percentage, you're going to fall right where you want to be, and you're gonna, because body fat percentage, it's not, for some it might be about the number. I think for most people, just based on the experiences I've had in the hundreds of consultations I've done, it's about aesthetics. Aesthetically, you're going to be where you want to be.
Yeah.
And that's not to speak for everybody, and again, that's not for, well, I'm this special snowflake and I do what? One, you know. Two, if you did and when you do, you will see exactly what you want to see in terms of body fat percentage as a number and body fat percentage as an aesthetic.
Yeah. Yep. So if anyone wants to take that journey, come on, let me know. Well, we can certainly help you out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that also speaks largely to the importance of understanding the individuality that everybody has. Right? And the reason why we had to attach kind of a time frame on the back end of it is because when you're going through making all these changes, because again, the assumption is nobody can just flip that switch and make it overnight. Even if you could, it really depends upon how long had you been doing things the other way? What does internally, what is going on that needs to be reversed and fixed, and what can be reversed and fixed, over time? How long is that going to take? I don't know. But I feel like saying at least a couple of months for things to kind of shake out, so to speak, is a fairly conservative estimate, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So 10 to 20, 18 to 28. What's the formula? Come and talk to us. Or just rewind and listen to what I said.
Yeah. So there's the answer. What is the normal or healthy body fat percentage? You guys just got it. If you weren't listening the last 30 minutes, then I don't know what to tell you, because we're going to move on.
Bam. Moving on.
That's okay with you. Did you have anything else?
Nope, that's it. I'm good.
Okay. So let's think here. How do I want to do this? Listener question number 2. There's a lot. There's a lot of questions in there. We're talking about heart rate reserve, how it applies, how does it relate to max heart rate, what are heart rate zones. I think what I'll do is I'll just ask you one, you answer it, and then we'll move on to the next one. You'll answer it, we'll move on, and then we'll just try to put it all together at the end. Sound good?
Yeah, but I'll ask you the first one.
You'll ask me the first one.
You're closer to the science.
You're gonna laugh at my answer.
Okay. What is HRR?
So I could tell you what the acronym stands for, heart rate reserve, but I feel like a lot of people aren't gonna like to hear this. We use it so little. It's so not important to general health and wellness that I don't remember why I would use it for. So it's awful because I had to know it. 2 years ago, you asked me what it is, you asked me what it's used for. Ever since then, it's not important information for me right now in my life, because I think this is way more important surrounding the area of performance, if it's even important there, right? Because...
Newsflash, it's not, but go ahead.
Because from what I've read in terms of research, everybody, when they are focusing on heart rate, they're talking about max heart rate. That's where a lot of the studies are being done, or they're talking about resting heart rate, one of those two. Heart rate reserve, you need to know it for formulas to figure things out in exercise physiology and exercise testing and prescription. All the stuff I took in school 2 years ago, when I graduated, when I walked across that stage, I left it on the first side of the stage.
So full disclosure, the reason why I asked you is because I was hoping you had the definition handy or you knew it, because I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I knew it stood for it, but I looked it up as you were talking.
Okay.
So heart rate reserve is the difference between your resting heart rate and the max heart rate that you can achieve. So just think about that, right? That's like saying, okay, the max heart rate, which by the way, if anyone tries that 220 minus age crap, that's wrong. So because I can show you thousands upon thousands of iterations of taking people into the 200s that are 40 years of age or older. So don't give me that. Anyways, before I get all fired up on that, just the definition. So you're telling me that somebody is thinking that there's an importance to understanding this number that is literally the end of an equation, of just a simple arithmetic equation of taking my max versus my resting, and I need to know this for something, right? It's like this minus this equals this. Great. That's what it is.
So pretty much what it is it's a title to a number that you get from an equation, and it can be used for other equations, as I mentioned with school, and what we'll get into when we talk about heart rate zones. But I mean, is there any real definition? What weight does it carry?
No, that was heart rate reserve is the difference between your resting heart rate and your max heart rate.
So there's no real definition there.
That's
hey, this is the important.
That's the definition. It's used primarily, like you said, for determining heart rate zones during exercise, and the amount of cushion in heartbeats available for exercise.
Okay.
And then, as if the definition wasn't enough, if your reading comprehension was bad, they do put this disclaimer at the end. To get your heart rate reserve, subtract your heart's resting rate from your maximum rate.
Just in case that first equation was a little bit too tough. If you're a little slow, that first equation was tough for you.
Okay.
So how does heart rate reserve apply to me, Josh? Me as a member at CFG, me as a general fitness enthusiast.
It's just a number.
All right. So how does it relate to max heart rate? I think we got the answer there.
Do I need to reread the definition?
I think let's come up with a new equation. So I think we'll spend a little bit more time on this one.
I won't.
All right, then let's get right into it. What are heart rate zones?
Numbers.
And why are they important?
Because at some point in the performance field, they needed to figure out a way to categorize work that they were doing with athletes that they were working with.
Okay.
Right? They needed a way to say, hey, you need to feel like this during this workout, because if your heart rate is lower, the idea goes that you should be able to sustain whatever amount of work that you are doing. If your heart rate is a lot higher, you're probably not going to be able to sustain that amount of power output for very long. So there's these zones. But again, to your point, years ago, I could tell you exactly what they were, what the ranges were with each zone, and I couldn't even tell you how many zones there are, what the ranges are, or anything like that, because I don't think that even at the elite level, I would never use that.
Really?
Heart rate zones, ever.
So I've actually seen a lot of what the elite athletes, like elite CrossFitters, have been doing lately is like zone 2 work. Like, I spent 40 minutes or I spent 60 minutes in zone 2, which we know as steady state. But, I mean, that's just steady state heart rate. That's conversational pace, right? Fraser, this question was asked because Matt Fraser just posted something because he just started coaching with, what's the hybrid performance? And they're in Miami. And so he released his program, and he has zone work, and he's posted this picture of him in front of a whiteboard with heart rate reserve on it and these equations, and so that's why we had this question asked to us. But for fun, I did the math on what my zone 2 would be. So spend 40 minutes at zone 2, inside of zone 2. The range for me is between a heart rate of 121, not that high, and 159. I don't know about you, but there's a huge difference between me being at 120 and me being at 160 for a heart rate. Like 160, I'm moving pretty hard. I'm moving pretty fast, and I'm breathing heavy. 120, I can hold that for 2 hours if you ask me to. Probably more, right? So for that type of range to be a zone, I don't know where it kind of falls into place. I mean, maybe take the average of that and then fall. But for what? Why am I even sitting here thinking about that? What is that helping me accomplish? For me, I'd rather, if I'm going to do some steady state work, I'm going to get on the bike and I'm going to go for 30 minutes and I'm going to just make sure I'm breathing heavy and sweating. That's it. If I'm going to move conversationally, I'm going to make sure I'm moving what I've been calling it lately, like riding the line. So at a conversational pace. Like I'm moving just fast enough to where I can maintain a conversation, but I'm not blowing myself up.
Right.
Awesome. That's the sweet spot.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much, and I made this joke whenever, not at anything that, Bart had said in class, but just that this is now something that is going to get pushed to the forefront because of who is, because of Fraser's platform, and all credit to him for the success that he's had, for sure. But this is now going to become like the next panacea. It's like 10 years ago when paleo was the solution and everybody cut starchy carbohydrates out of their diet and wondered why they felt like they just got murdered when they were trying to do Helen. Right? It was like, this is the solution, and now it's going to be zone training, which is good for us as coaches, and in my position to be aware of what's coming down the pipe, because we need to be able to talk about that. But I'll say this, just in regards to that, the general concept. 99.9%, and I'm really tempted to say 100%, but I don't want to. 99.9% of people should never ever care about HRR or zone training or worrying about what their heart rate is or anything like that. Because what matters, and we've talked about this a couple of times over the past few weeks, is you need to understand like the three pieces that go into what we call like the dose, or the stimulus that comes out of the back end that dictate that. Is the intention that somebody goes into a training session with, the modality that is being used, and the person that is actually doing the work. Today is a perfect case in point, and I did not set this up, but the connection just came to me as you were talking earlier, is the intention of this workout being Helen versus this workout being 3 rounds per time after a 5-week progression is infinitely different. So that's intentions are a personal thing, right?
Yeah.
Second is the modality. Would you be able to hold you were talking about your zone 2 range of like 120 to 159. Would you rather hold 159 for an hour on the assault bike, right, or on running? Like what?
Oh, running.
Okay, because they're different.
Yeah.
Right? They're vastly different.
My 159 on the assault bike is gonna be. I mean, that's pushing.
Yeah.
Because I'm normally when I'm doing like assault bike intervals, I'm hanging out probably between like 160 and 165 versus I could run at a light pace and crank up to that.
Yeah.
So I know that a zone 2 run, you might as well just put me on a speed walk.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be the same thing.
Yeah. So there's that, and then there's the person, and inside of the person, and we're number one is the biology and the physiology of said person, but then it's what did they do yesterday? What did they do a couple of days ago? Did they do stuff that really crushed their CNS, and then they're doing this stuff today? Because that's all going to be different. What was their breakfast like? What was their dinner like the night before? What was their sleep like? So all of these things matter. And when you try to categorize it and just look at it from a very amateur perspective of the zones or the HRR, you're leaving out all the other pieces that go into the art of coaching.
Oh, never
right?
dropped.
Because you're trying to science-ify, what it is that you're doing. Now, what's interesting, we've all gotten to see a much different, not we all, but folks that have like paid attention to some of the stuff that Fraser has really opened up with since he retired from the sport. Probably the most glaring thing that I have had insight into, which I kind of assumed anyhow or inferred just anyhow from what I could kind of figure out from him, is that his entire existence was set up to maximize every second of every minute of every hour of every day in pursuit of 5 titles in a row.
Which is crazy.
And so for him, he's already got a live-in chef and his girlfriend, fiance, wife. He said all 3. I think it's wife now, but I don't know for sure anyways. But anyway, so he's had that. He's had like the sleep dialed in. He's had the recovery dialed in. I mean, everything has been. So when he is saying that this is what I used, right? Number 1, that's him. That's him.
Yeah.
Number 2, his intention was to win, right? And then it's very dependent upon modality. So you have to go in knowing all those things. And so to just take it at face value, if you take nothing else away from the last 15 minutes that we've talked about this particular listener question, is this: it doesn't matter. Just delete it and move on.
Okay.
Because the most valuable thing, instead of worrying about, you would have gotten more value, and I know it sounds like I'm like getting mad or fired up at this person, and it's not that at all. But anybody that just spent 15 minutes listening to us ramble, you would have gotten more value by picking up the phone and calling one of us and individualizing something for you versus trying to figure out this heart rate zone and heart rate, what is it? heart rate reserve number.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
HRR.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think what you said, you wanted to say 100%, but you said 99.9%. This isn't important for, right? But Fraser, 5-time champion, right? Champion of a certain sport. Like, maybe, just maybe, it was beneficial to him, but chances are that's just what he used to help explain why he did that training, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to speak for him. I have no idea what his training looked like the last 5 or 6 years, 7 years or whatever. But it's almost like, hey man, like just get on and go like moderately hard for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Like instead of attaching it to this crazy zone that was a difference of 40 beats per minute.
Yeah.
Which is just huge.
You're missing the forest through the trees, is the saying. If you're thinking about things like this being the difference between getting you from where you are to where you want to go. It ain't zone training and HRR. And I would even say that for the elites. The reality is the way that he had his life set up, combined with his insane work ethic, combined with his genetics, combined with his intention that he's in the sport to do one thing, to show up, to win money. He's always been very, and this is what I love about him, very transparent that that's why he was there, is to win and to win at the highest level because he wanted to get paid for what he was doing. He wasn't there to have fun. Noah Olson is a great one. I think that he has the genetic, probably most of those guys do, have the genetic makeup, and the work ethic to get there and win the game. But Noah, and to his credit, he has explicitly said that he wants to have fun. Anyone watch The Last Dance? Jordan wasn't there to have fun. He was there to win.
Yeah.
And if you want to win, you set your life up to do that.
Right.
Doesn't mean that it's going to be fun. And I'm not saying you can't have fun and win, but when you've got somebody else that is going to work just as hard, if not harder, and push the fun to the side to win at all costs, that's such a dangerous statement to say, but
yeah.
I don't mean it like that, but where everything is set up just perfectly, that's why he won. It wasn't because of zone training. And his audience that is watching the zone training definitely should never worry about that.
Right.
Anyways.
It's refreshing to hear. I think a lot of people listen to him, and you saw this online, and a lot of people are like, how could you treat the sport like that, the sport that did so much for you? And you and I talked about this off microphones, but what a joke thing to say. If you're somebody who's come up to me or have said or listened to this podcast and you're like, all you guys do is crap on CrossFit, go listen to any podcast Matt Fraser's on, and you will hate him if that's what you think, because he has some stuff to say. Go listen to Joe Rogan. Go listen to clips of the podcast he started. Don't listen to the whole thing. Just listen to clips with the titles that intrigue you, because you're gonna, I don't want to say get a wake up call, but you're gonna.
So there's an interesting one that I'm sure people would not like to listen to and then admit to themselves or to us that they listen to. But I kind of smiled a little bit after I listened to it, okay, I guess we know what we're doing. But anyways, there's one where they're like, hey, now that you're not competing, are there any movements that you're not doing anymore? And I'm like, weird. Pistols, handstand push-ups, high volume dynamic contractions. So if you're not competing to win hundreds of thousands of dollars, what are you doing them for?
Yeah.
I'll just leave that there.
It was so refreshing, and again, we won't get into this too deep, but refreshing to hear such a legend of the sport like Josh Bridges say. He's like, there are so many better things you can do to achieve the stimulus of a pistol. And he specifically said, you can do a lunge, you can do a step up. I'm like, hey, that's exactly what we do here.
Yeah.
He's like, same thing with a handstand push-up. He's like, there's so many other things that you can do. He's like, the general public should not be doing those things. Pistols and handstand push-ups. You should be doing step-ups. You should be doing a push press, a dumbbell push press. I'm like, I like this dude, man. Yeah. So it was really cool to kind of hear that. Not to further our own agenda, but just to hear someone that was at the pinnacle of the sport. I mean, he placed third in what year? 2013, 2014 or something.
Yeah, something like that. 2013, 14.
I mean, he placed third.
Yeah.
And he's saying, don't do those things. So that's cool.
So the next one, I guess, is for you, Mark, because I don't know the answer to this. We've got a few minutes. What does the next block of training look like? I think I have some ideas in terms of like the structure and the principle behind it, because those aren't changing, and I know what we've kind of talked about. But
so I think this will be interesting for people, and it kind of worked out this way last time when we did this on the podcast, because you and I haven't talked about it yet. So I think we're going to have some ideas going back and forth and talking about it a little bit. What do you think it's going to be about? You just said you kind of have an idea.
So about 2 weeks ago, maybe, I don't remember exactly when, but I got done doing one of the workouts, and I thought to myself, it would have been really, because I knew what was coming at the end was going to be one of the 12-minute AMRAPs, like kind of the culmination. And I understand, why we had a design like that. It's like that's what we're working towards, and we're using all these progressions to build to it. But I remember sitting on the floor afterwards thinking, man, it would have been really a great opportunity and learning experience to do the 12-minute AMRAP on week 1 to just let people, hey, you know what? You take your strategy, what you think is going to work out best for you, and then over the course of the next several weeks, we're going to work through progressions, so based upon what your capability is and all that kind of stuff, and then we're going to retest it at the end, having progressed your skills, progressed your volume, taught you pacing, sustainability, and all that kind of stuff, and then shown you that, hey, here is what progression can do for you over time. So you kind of have that like little test and retest thing.
And it's really only over the course of 3 weeks in a model like that, because you're going to be doing it in week 1 and in week 5. So that only leaves 2, 3, and 4 where you're doing progressions. And it's like, man, if it's only over the course of like 21 days that we can teach you how to, like, not that you're getting that much more fit over, those 5 weeks, but you're just becoming a better worker-outer, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Like, you're becoming a little bit more mature in terms of how you approach workouts. Like, that's pretty cool to see. But here's what we're pretty much looking at. This one, I think the last couple of blocks that we focus on has been about all the stuff we've done in like the weightlifting and some stuff that's bled over into the Metcon, but specifically the weightlifting. So like this one was tensile strength, so something that we accomplished a lot through tempo work in the weightlifting. This block, the focus of this is, hopefully you can come up with a better name than I did. I literally just called it conditioning, endurance, and pacing. So like teaching people how to do that, which we've been doing in the long run anyway. Another word would be like sustainability. Like sustainability is what we're looking for. We have been doing a lot of EMOMs.
Yeah.
This focuses on doing work, resting based on how long that work took, kind of like the last open workout.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at this. Monday, we're gonna be doing some 1 1/4 squats. So dumbbell front rack, full grip on the dumbbell, none of this crap where you let it fall on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Full grip on the dumbbell helps the midline. 1 1/4 squats, supersetting that with, based on your capabilities, either a hollow hold or an L sit.
Oh.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh.
So some good midline tension we're going for there.
Yep.
The Metcon on this day, I'll start by telling you what we're testing at the end for time. A 1K row followed by 50 wall balls. We were talking about that through text last week.
I didn't answer because I was hoping you'd forget about it and not do it.
So that's kind of what we're assessing at the end is for time, a 1K row and 50 wall balls. But for example, on Monday, what we're doing is you're going to do 3 rounds of a 300-meter row, 15 wall balls, 1 minute of rest in between each round. So again, kind of going back to what I was saying with that quote, ride the line.
Yeah.
So you want to go just fast enough to where you can repeat it and sustain it.
Yeah.
With that 1 minute of rest in between, because you know that
that
1 minute of rest is not too much, right?
Yep.
To prepare us for this upcoming Memorial Day workout, we're going to have some pull-up eccentrics on Tuesday. Yep. So just nothing we're not used to, doing some pull-ups, doing an eccentric. Use whatever assistance or added resistance you need to accomplish the prescribed eccentric for that day.
Yeah.
The Metcon progression on Monday, here's what we're looking at. Well, let's go with our final assessment, what we're kind of assessing. 2 rounds, this is week 5, 2 rounds for time, 600-meter run, 20 toes to bar, 10 deadlifts at moderate weight, whatever you choose. The first week, what we're looking at on Tuesday, you're going to do 1 round, 600-meter run, 20 toes to bar, 10 deadlifts, and then you're going to rest 2 minutes. And then you're going to do the second round.
Right.
So only 2 rounds. As we progress, this workout's only going to be 2 rounds, but the rest will change. So week 2, it's 90 seconds of rest. Week 3, it's 1 minute of rest. Week 4, it's 30 seconds of rest.
Yep.
And then the last week, no rest. Like now you're just trying to hold the pace for 2 rounds. The toes to bar, 20 people might hear 20 and go, man, that's a lot. We're looking for a number that you can maintain in 1 to 2 sets. So like if it's 20, you're doing something like a 10-10. Maybe if you're doing 10, you're doing something like a 5-5 with a little bit of rest. We've worked on these unbroken sets all the way up to what we've done is 8, I think in the last block. This block it was 6 with a little bit higher volume. So we're going to try to do 2 sets, 2 of these slightly bigger sets.
Got it. Like it.
Wednesday's our aerobic day. You guys know that's coming every week. Thursday, we're going to have some barbell front rack alternating box step-ups. Ooh, everybody at 20 inches. So everybody will be at a low box. It'll allow us to keep the weight light, keep a good front rack position. Again, we're kind of looking for that midline activation. We're supersetting that with a supinated barbell row with a 2-second pause at the top of each rep.
I like that.
Yeah, boom. So using the same weight, go ahead.
Yeah, I like the contrast between the bilateral squat and the unilateral step up. So
that's exactly
just for those of us, just for those that are thinking, oh, we just did something. Yeah, I like the balance there. So go ahead.
Cool. Metcon progression. This is what we are going to see in week 1 and in week 5 here. So we're going to keep using this box. We're going to go a 10-minute EMOM. On the odd minute, you're going to do an AMRAP of box jump overs. In the even minute, you're going to do an AMRAP of power cleans.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. So lightweight, I think barbell weight cap is 95-65.
Got it.
Then, so you'll test that in week, I don't like saying test, but you're gonna do that workout in week 1 and week 5. In week 2, we crank it down a little bit. You're gonna go a 10-minute EMOM of 30 seconds of one, 30 seconds on the other minute. Then the next week is 40 and 40, and then 50 seconds and 50 seconds before now we've kind of ramped back up to a minute and a minute.
Got it.
And then on Friday next week, we're going to have some upper body vertical pushing. We're going to be doing some barbell strict press with the same 2-2-X1 tempo that we've been doing for the bench press.
Oh, yeah.
So 2 second down, 2 second active pause in that front rack before pressing back up. Looking at that. And then that's going to be a Metcon. That just varies every week, but basically we're going to have some sort of like jump rope on that day, some sort of hinge plus upper body pull, so think like dumbbell snatch or kettlebell swing, and then some sort of horizontal push, so a push-up, a wall walk maybe. Ooh.
I'm sick that day. But.
Yes. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So
love it. That's awesome.
Nothing too
progressions.
Yeah, man. The progressions, I'm really excited about these ones. I think with these ones is people are going to be shocked that like people are like, oh man, week 1 or 2 is just kind of getting your feet wet. Like I think in week 1 or 2 for this week, for this block, it's going to start out. You're going to feel not worked. I don't like saying worked, but like you're really starting at like a really decent progression. And not that we weren't last time. I'm just really excited.
But
about
it's just it's certainly different because you're almost getting like the feeling that you have in the final week. If anyone hasn't noticed this, maybe it's just me, but the feeling that I have in these final weeks is vastly different than the feeling that I've had the previous 4 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And so you can't. We've talked about this. You can't run that way all the time. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, you have that, and then it's like, okay, look, we're going to have another 3 weeks where we're building progression. I'm really interested to see how I feel in that next 5th week, having done it almost twice, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Love it.
We are right on time there.
Look at that, right on time. Like we planned this, and even though we didn't.
Boom.
Sweet. Well, if anyone has other questions, let us know, and we'll put them in for next week. Other than that, that's it for me, man. Get on to my next agenda item.
Your next goal.
Next one.
Josh, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
As always, thank you to our live listeners for tuning in. If you tuned in live, thank you for listening to this on SoundCloud or Buzzsprout or iTunes.